Good morning, grade 8, and welcome to the last chapter of Fresh and Saltwater System. This chapter is a tiny bit boring. It talks about, all the human effects of, polluting water, not taking care of water, not taking care of our resources, and things like that. It's so redundant. We've talked about it over and over in many different subjects and many different chapters, but it's part of this chapter, it's part of this unit, and we have to just go with it. I'm gonna try to make it as fun as possible, okay, like I always do. Okay. All right, so like I said, we're going to be talking about human activities and how it impacts, the quality and quantity of water on Earth. So, the total amount of water on Earth is in general renewable, okay? However, it's not available to us, right? The same amount of water isn't always the same, available in terms of availability year after year in, the same places, right? It changes. For example, if you think about it, water is so abundant, 70% of the earth is water. But then again, when it comes to drinking water, it's only 0.003% of that water. And unfortunately, worldwide, as you know, there are several places that do not have access to drinking water. And currently, one of the places that's very much on the radar is Palestine, right? Okay. So, how do humans use water? Where humans use water directly, obviously, we drink it. It's very important that we, stay hydrated and drink enough water all the time. We use it for cleansing, showering, washing, cleaning, and all that. Not just ourselves, but we use it for cleaning pretty much everything, right? Laundry, dishes, you name it. Then we also use it for taking care of our personal gardens and things like that. So those are all direct uses of water, okay? Direct human uses of water. The indirect use of water is when this water is being used elsewhere in some capacity, but we are reaping the benefits of that at home, right? And the biggest thing about that is how it is used in agriculture for growing fruits, vegetables, crops, and whatnot. And then also how they're used in factories and industries, right? There's water being used in huge quantities, in huge scale, in running those systems and processes, but we sitting at home reap the benefits of it every single day. So that's indirect use of water. Okay, and many of these indirect uses of water obviously has a very bad effect on earth. We're going to take a look. It's going to come up the domestic use of water that humans we do is actually just 5% of the total usage of water. All right, moving on. So like I was saying, one of the major uses of water is agriculture. Okay, so of all the water that is used by people around the world, 73% of it goes into agriculture for irrigation to grow crops. And that's a very important thing, right? You need to make a note of the advantages of agriculture, and it's going to come up in the next slide, the disadvantages. So obviously the advantages is that it provides food not only for the people who live there, even though it says so, but agriculture provides food for growing crops and vegetables and fruits that's exported worldwide, imported worldwide, right? Agriculture products grown on irrigated land can be used as a mean of business, income generation for the country and for the zone. And this also creates a lot of job opportunities for people living in that region, in the farmland region, like people who don't want to travel to city, who wants to stay back home, in farmland and areas. It creates job opportunities for them. However, the disadvantage is that over irrigation of the soil can dissolve salts in the soil, and this salt comes up to the surface of the soil, and it makes the soil very, very salty or alkaline, and that's land then actually becomes wasted because plants don't grow in alkaline soil very much. All right. And also irrigation can deplete groundwater supplies in that zone. That can happen as well. Okay. let's take a look at industry use of water. As you can understand, worldwide, how many factories and industries there are, like huge, massive industries. And you can imagine, like, the amount of water that they use. What are water used for in these industries? Well, they're used as coolants because running machineries and things like that creates and generates a lot of heat energy, and a lot of the machinery need cooling. So they're used as coolants. They are used as solvents. So water, as you learned back in grade 7, is called a universal solvent. Grade 7? No, grade 8, chapter 1, I believe, right? Unit 1. Water is called a universal solvent because it is able to dissolve a lot of substances on earth that's available to us. So it's used as a major solvent in factories and industries. And then obviously there's the washing, there's the cleaning going on in factories and industries as well, and dilution. I believe you understand what is dilution. So if something is really thick or it's very concentrated, water is a substance that can be added to dilute it. All right, so these are the industrial uses of water, and huge quantity, huge. All right. Like I said, domestic use or the use at home of water is only about 5% worldwide, okay? Water for domestic use in developed countries like Canada, it's purified and piped into homes. Hence, it is very, very safe for drinking. I think I talked about this in some other classes. I don't know if it was with you guys or not, but I did talk about, I researched, like, the water quality of tap water in Qatar, and that is also purified and piped into homes. So that is also very, very safe for drinking. All right. I know every single household pretty much, like, I would say like 95% of the household have those water dispensers, like bougie, because tap water is really safe in Qatar to drink. All right. Unfortunately, you can imagine worldwide, like, there's a drinking water crisis, and there are many countries that do not have this opportunity. They do not have this privilege where purified, clean water is piped to their homes, unfortunately. So these are the zones where people have to walk or travel to places to get, like, good drinking water. It's kind of sad. Okay. As you know, we talked about dams, I believe, in grade 7 when we talked about hydroelectricity, an alternative form of non-renewable energy. So alternatives to non-renewable energy was wind, water, nuclear, right? So water was one of them, and in order to harness water's energy to be used as electrical energy, we have to build dams. So I'm not going to go through this one by one, but I do expect you to study this. You do need to know all the advantages and disadvantages of dams, okay? If not all, please study at least 3 to 4 of them. If there is certain vocabulary in there, I will definitely put it in your study guide that that has to be studied from here. But most definitely, you do need to know at least 3 to 4 points of advantages and disadvantages, as that can come as a long question or a short answer question. Okay, like, give me 2 advantages of dams, or give me 2 disadvantages of dams, or compare the advantages and disadvantages of dams. All right, so make sure you study this. Moving on. So here are some Canadian facts about dams, and I didn't want to go through this slide because it's just factual information that I'm not going to test you on, and it's not going to be part of bonus question as well. But it's just like, if you read it, it's hilarious when you say so Canada is one of the world's top 10 dam builders, okay? And most of the major river systems in Canada have been dammed. Like, what? No, it sounds so weird. We have over 600 large dams and thousands of small dams. Most large dams in Canada are built to provide hydroelectricity. Yahoo! Most of Canada's dams are in Quebec and British Columbia. If you combined all the area flooded by dams in Canada, it would cover an entire area the size of Lake Ontario, which is huge. That was fun. Okay. This is very important. You do need to study all of these because I will ask random questions for here in terms of, say, for example, how does habitat destruction, how does habitat destruction affect water quality? How does oil spills affect water quality? How do runoffs affect water quality? So I will ask you specifically, okay? And there are very important information here. For example, if you read like sewage, you know what? Let me just go through each of them. So power stations, all right? Power stations sometimes discharge water, like warm water, into lakes or rivers that can kill off animals, and it encourages an excessive plant growth. So that plant growth that happens, it competes for the oxygen and other nutrients in there. So then other microorganisms and other organisms die off, okay? Habitat destruction takes away the places that animals can live and plants can grow. Obviously, clearing of fields and ecosystems, destroying them to build the factories and industries. Factories might add dangerous chemicals to the water or practice thermal pollution, killing aquatic plants or animals. And some of these chemicals can cause tumors, birth defects, make organisms unable to breed. Literally, you can, like, make this into a horror movie if you kind of think about it, like, like mutant animals, like, coming about, right? Or it can be a superhero kind of thing, whichever way, okay? It's not, no. Runoff from farmland contains fertilizers that can cause excessive plant growth. Again, same thing as power stations, right? Runoff from city streets contains large amounts of oil and other chemicals, including salt. Again, alkaline situation that is not very helpful for plants or animals. Sewage contains large amounts of nitrogen, and this is what I was coming to. Like, these can be your true, false, or multiple choice kind of questions. Sewage contains large amounts of which gas, which causes the number of microorganisms to increase or decrease, right? If these microorganisms use up the oxygen, fish will suffocate. Phosphorus in sewage promotes plant growth. So I can ask you which chemical promotes plant growth, right? And this can be fill in the blanks, true or false, multiple choice, match the following, so many things. So please make sure you study this slide very, very well. Okay. And then we have our review questions here. All right, so do take a time to go through them if you can. Not very important though. All right, moving on. Measuring impact. So this is a kind of parasite. It's called Giardia parasite. It's a microorganism. It's and when it shows up if water is not properly purified by chlorination. All right, and this causes beaver fever. Not baby Justin Bieber. This Bieber, the Canadian beaver fever. Okay, I don't know why it's called beaver fever. Have to look that up. Maybe beavers suffered from it, and there might have been a population decline of beaver because of this parasite. However, this does affect humans, and like I said, it shows up when water is not properly purified by chlorination. All right, and sometimes there's an outbreak. God forbid, thankfully there hasn't been an epidemic or a pandemic because of it, because once it breaks out, people become cautious that the water in that area needs to be treated. So the people are treated, the water is treated, everything goes back to normal. All right, so just like any other thing, a small number of people get sick and everyone is made aware how important safe and drinking water should be. Okay. So monitoring, as we learned, I think in chapter 1, right? Monitoring water quality is extremely important in order to make sure that potable water is always good to go. So observe, check, keep track, and water monitoring has to be done continuously, right? Because changes are happening all the time. Town and city water supplies have to be monitored regularly. Water technicians regularly measure chemicals and organisms in the water. They observe how it looks, how it smells, They can identify possible problems and adjust the water treatment to get rid of those issues or concerns. But this is a very, very important aspect, of quality control of water. All right. Research scientists use monitoring techniques to protect the environment, obviously. Monitoring also helps to develop appropriate technologies to help protect the environment, preserve ecosystems and whatnot. Monitoring also helps to detect the presence of toxic chemicals in lakes, sloughs, rivers, or streams. A lot of the times, if monitoring is not done consistently, continuously, then all of a sudden, an ecosystem is affected and there's a population decline of certain species and whatnot. So in order to avoid that, continuous monitoring of water quality is very, very important. Okay. The technology used for monitoring. So the Canadian Wildlife Service uses gull eggs to monitor toxic pollutants around the Great Lakes. Mussels, a shellfish, are used to monitor toxic substances in sediments on the east coast of the US. Pollutants in the water collect in these organisms, and then scientists then analyze the animals' tissues. This type of monitoring helps scientists better understand how pollution is affecting organisms. Okay. Just so you understand, the Canadian Wildlife Service and the east coast of the US, they're not introducing mussels and gull eggs for this purpose. They naturally exist there. It is in their ecosystem. They just gather them in order to study what's going on. So they're not abused, is what I'm trying to say. All right, same thing over and over. Ongoing monitoring of a site helps scientists observe changes. If there is something that is negative, then they try to come up with a solution for it and whatnot. So here is an example of how a problem was solved, which goes beyond science and technology, so as to say. So the Aral Sea was once one of the largest bodies of fresh water in Central Asia. Okay. Russian water diversion projects for growing cotton drained more water from the sea than was being replaced by rivers. Then the docks that lined the shore are now far away from the water's edge as the sea is shrinking. And now, it was a rich fishing industry in Asia, but being shared by the European boundary and by by the exploitation of Russians. That has really caused a dent in the fishing industry, okay, for people living in that zone in the Asian side. So the problems with Aral Sea that happen, this cannot be solved by science and technology alone. Okay, so when people and scientists see that something like this is coming about, then there should be governmental interventions to ensure that it doesn't go beyond a point of no return. So what happened to Aral Sea issue with the damage of the fishing industry, it went to a point of no return. There's no way to restore back the shore and the edge of the water, the sea line. It cannot be done anymore. So this is really important to note, how human activity, if you are selfish and if you are not aware of the consequences of what you are doing, how much damage it can do. Okay, irreversible damage, that too. All right. Another one is Thames River. This is a good one. This is a positive one. So Thames River in England, those of you who know, all of you should know, it used to be an open sewer. So hundreds of years, the city dumped sewage and industries dumped toxic waste. So obviously it was filthy. And then it started giving up a stink, right? Because it was decomposing stuff, dead material, chemicals, whatnot. This is disgusting. And then the smell started making people very, very sick because it's chemicals, right? When decomposition or something, or decaying is going on. It's giving off gases, right? So that made the environment very, very toxic, made people very, very sick. So once the problem was identified, uh, people just stopped dumping things into the water, and gradually the river started clearing up, and as of now it is a clean river. It's a clear river, and it is it is a home to many types of fishes and other life forms. And it just came about by people recognizing the problem and just taking a simple step of stopping dumping stuff in there. As simple as that. It just took a while. It didn't happen overnight. The clearing did not happen overnight. The clearing might not even have happened in 5 years, 10 years. It might have taken some time, but gradually, as of now, it has cleared up. So it's important to recognize what we do, how we do. And I know that domestic use of water is 5% of the total water used worldwide, but every single drop, every single effort counts. So we need to be cognizant of not being wasteful in any way, and especially about water as well, right? Especially we should think that worldwide, like I said, there's so many people around the world do not have access to clean drinking water. That's just really, really sad. All right, so we are at the end of chapter 4. Potentially, I am going to have you do a worksheet as a study guide, as a review, and when we come back, we're going to review all the worksheets. And please make sure your project is ready to be submitted on May 4th. And we are going to start Unit D, and that's the last unit that we have to work on. We are very good on time. All right, so I'll see you when I see you. Bye. Cool. Okay, bye.